Does she have an original thought in that little brain of hers? I don't think so. Meghan Markle's creepy, weird obsession with Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has got even worse over the weekend as she, this time, tries to gate crash Charlie Mackesy, the inspirational author who quite clearly is backing the Princess of Wales and not the Duchess of Delusion. But first, breaking today. King Charles and Prince William's deepening rift has exploded into public view over the Christmas lunch. The royal rota will not report what's really going on, but I will. So will Brittany from the Royal News Network, who will be here very shortly with analysis. But first, this situation is really sad. Of course it is. But I think it's irresponsible not to report on very obvious tensions between a head of state battling incurable terminal cancer and his son, the heir to the throne, wanting to take over in all but name, a regency in effect. And the fact that Tom Sykes has been able to confirm over the weekend that William will be skipping the King's Christmas lunch after a year of astonishing tension, disagreements, and clashing visions for the monarchy is, in my view, in the public interest. It is hugely significant, especially when you dig down and look at the differences between father and son, which don't just include Harry and Andrew and Meghan, but also increasingly the role of the princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who William has serious concerns are going to bring shame to the royal family in decades to come, in exactly the same type of way that Andrew and Fergie have brought shame from decades in the past. But let me take you through this reporting. It is very in-depth, fascinating. Of course, Tom Sykes behind the Royalist blog on Substack. And he writes, William and Charles's office did not respond to a request for comment, but a source told the Royalist, William and the family will do their duty and go to church with big smiles pasted on, but they are not expected for Christmas lunch at the big house. That's in Sandringham, of course. It has been an extremely difficult year for William and Catherine. Sykes reports William and his family are expected to retreat to their private home, Amner Hall, after the 11 a.m. church service on Christmas Day. This will mark the third year in a row they have skipped lunch with William's dad. A friend of the King's angrily denied the decision represented a rift, saying, of course William is invited, and of course he is free to do his own thing without anyone being remotely upset. However, the Royalist understands that the deep personal rift between father and son has been exacerbated by Charles's determination to continue to include Andrew's children, Beatrice and Eugenie, in formal royal events. I have told the princesses have been invited to Sandringham for Christmas as part of Charles's ongoing efforts to make it clear they have not been cut off from royal society like their father. They may, of course, opt not to come in solidarity with their parents, both of whom have not been invited. William's concerns go deeper than a Christmas photo call, however. Both women continue to rent private properties in London from the King on terms unknown, Beatrice in St James's Court and Eugenie in Ivy Cottage at Kensington Palace. For many years, the media were told their father paid commercial rent on his property Royal Lodge, but it ultimately turned out he was paying rent of 1 peppercorn per annum if demanded. William's operation is run by young, digital-savvy individuals who understand the threat that the King's ongoing endorsement of Beatrice and Eugenie represents to the monarchy. A friend of Eugenie denied claims that a request had been made by William for the princesses to have an ethics check on their finances and insisted they have nothing to hide. Her office didn't respond to a request for comment, but a friend of William said, there is not a specific fear about a specific detail. There is anxiety about the broader impact on the monarchy's reputation of anyone with the surname York being part of it. At the heart of their conflict lies a difference in philosophy about what the monarchy should project. William wants to strip back the pomp, uniforms, and believes prioritizing family life over relentless public duty is the right course. Charles, by contrast, believes that constant visibility is the monarchy's primary job, and that his son risks undermining the institution's reputation for dutiful, selfless service by placing family first. There were suspicions in the summer that rivals were encouraging some of the stories about William and Catherine's long and extravagant summer holidays as a kind of proxy war aimed at undermining the couple's carefully cultivated narrative of middle class normality. So, Brittany, this is major. It's not been reported at all by the royal rota in the United Kingdom, which continue on this philosophy that everything is completely fine between father and son. Now, it's not. That might be unpleasant. Some people might not want to hear that, but it is the truth. And you know that I always believe in reporting the truth. So I want to pick up first, before we get into the details of why William and Charles have had this issue. I want to first just talk about Christmas itself, Brittany. It feels like a pretty devastating snub, given Charles may not have many Christmases left, that William will not attend at the big house. It feels like, and from my reporting, Brittany, it feels most likely that the Middleton family will be at the house and that William and Catherine will spend the rest of the day privately with the Middletons. Now, of course, a royal Christmas has always divided principles. I mean, Diana couldn't stand it. Brittany, she hated it, the traditions, the games, all of that type of thing. But do you feel sad about the fact that things are so strained between William and Charles that he's not going to be attending the Christmas lunch with his father given his health battles? A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wootton Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www.outspoken.live.
You know, Dan, I do feel really sorry for Charles in this instance because he definitely has an estrangement from his other son, Harry, as well, and doesn't see Harry's family around the holidays either. And so, William being there, you would imagine he would maybe make a bit more of an effort to appear, even if it isn't the most, let's say, fun event, I'm sure, of the calendar. It is an opportunity for the family to be together. It's something they've done for many years, but with the death of Queen Elizabeth, you can just see William sort of taking a step back from some of this and wanting to exert what he feels like or what he sees as a future vision of the monarchy, which is less formality, less scheduling around the Christmas holiday. But it is always a thing with families as well. You sort of have to divide the holiday between the families. So William and Catherine could, of course, spend Christmas Eve, all Christmas Eve with the Middletons, and then spend Christmas Day with the rest of the royals. So that William is perhaps making the decision to go back to his home and sort of ignore his father's family gathering, I think is quite telling and quite sad. I think this is something William should make a priority because at this point, if the reporting is true, we don't know how long Charles has. William doesn't know. Best to keep with these traditions as long as possible to keep the family together because that will make the future definitely stronger.
Yeah, it will. By the way, it's not only Tom Sykes who is reporting this now, Brittany, and to me it's really telling that all of this is coming from the independent media sphere. Rob Shooter of Shooter Scoop on YouTube also now confirming that William is skipping the Christmas lunch to stay with the Middletons. But he says, Brittany, and I don't know if I can believe it, but he says he's triple checked and he describes it as a jaw dropper. He says Charles has invited Prince Andrew to the private Christmas lunch. Not to church, obviously, because that would be a PR disaster of biblical proportions. So imagine it. This is Rob Shooter speaking, a cozy royal lunch featuring Charles and Andrew with William and Catherine nowhere in sight. Honestly, Netflix couldn't write better holiday drama. Now, Brittany, if that is true, could you think that there is potentially it be that Charles is sort of potentially trying to say, look, Sandringham's going to be your new home. You've agreed to leave Royal Lodge. You can't come to the church. This is a completely private, behind closed doors lunch with no pictures, no way of being seen. Is that understandable? Or actually, does William have a right to be ropeable, saying, what are you doing? Like another year where you're allowing the opportunity for there to be an Andrew headline.
Well, in this particular instance, Dan, I actually have to agree with Charles here. Christmas is a time for family, regardless of what Andrew has allegedly done. And again, he has not been convicted of any sort of crime at this point. There's a lot of insinuations and a lot of strong evidence, but I don't see the point in, let's say, el- making sure that Andrew can attend any of the holiday celebrations at Sandringham. I hope he goes to church that Christmas morning, maybe not walking with the family, although in some ways I don't have a particular issue with that because I feel like going to church is an important thing for the Christmas holiday. If he wants to go to church, he should be able to go to church. Nobody should stop him from doing that, even if the PR optics are somewhat bad. But I think Charles here is establishing something very firm, and I think something he can extend to his son Harry as well if he does strip, let's say, Harry and Meghan of the titles, which is that, yes, maybe you don't have these titles anymore, but that doesn't mean you're not part of the family. That doesn't mean that you're separated from the rest of us during the holiday season. I think that's actually a sort of important message to project. And so I don't really see a particular issue. However, I can see William having an issue with that. And again, you have some of these family tensions, dynastic tensions that are all sort of together in this instance. And William is trying to figure out, I'm sure, what the future sort of looks like for the monarchy and how to deal with these rogue royals. But when it comes to particular family events that are obviously, especially those behind closed doors, I don't see any issue with family members, even those who have gone through troubles, had their titles stripped. I think it's actually important to have them still come to family gatherings. I think that's actually a really good message.
Well, and this then leads us on to the wider issue, right? And
Mm.
where there is the more significant split, I would argue, between William and Charles. And that seems to be this idea that William wants to almost immediately go towards this European style stripped down monarchy with the Yorks completely thrust out, including Beatrice and Eugenie. And the fascinating detail in that Tom Sykes revelation to me, Brittany, is that he wants this financial health check on his two cousins. And clearly that is because they are doing some business. We know for a fact at least one of them is doing some business dealings in the Middle East.
It is a very complicated situation. And I do think that perhaps there could be some questions there, but the problem I have is when you go on fact-finding expeditions without a, let's say, particular direction, like you have firm proof that's, let's say, something you know that there's a particular person who's particularly questionable or what have you. When you go on sort of wild fact-finding missions, you can find anything and turn it into something nefarious in that instance. So I don't think without probable cause, I don't see any reason why William should be poking around Beatrice and Eugenie's finances. I think that's overstepping in the extreme. And the issue, again, is not that Beatrice and Eugenie have titles. The issue is how the royals have not dealt with their rogue royals, or at least in this particular instance, the British royals haven't dealt with the rogue royals in the last 30 to 40 years, starting with Andrew, continuing on with Harry and Meghan. The issue is not the titles, the issue is the entitlement that some of these royal family members have and how they are abusing it to their own benefit, and how the monarchy is just sort of sitting back there and sort of watching things happen and not addressing these issues. And if William, let's say, wants to enact change, I think the biggest thing is how do you look to the future and make sure the things that started with Andrew continued on with Harry and perhaps include Beatrice and Eugenie as well. How do you prevent these things from happening again? Because I think in particular, there's a danger with William's perspective of emphasizing family time over the actual duties, because you have this particular situation where the British monarchy, I would say, is in a precarious state. And actually, to be seen more is a good thing here. You need to be seen more. The Spanish work every day as if it's the last day of the monarchy. They're working all the time. They're the hardest working royals out there. Charles, very similar in that respect, because I think, again, the Brits, I think, are more precarious than they might think. And I think complacency here is a danger.
It is, and I agree with that, but I
Mhm.
also think that I understand where William's coming from, which is that Andrew and Fergie maybe wouldn't have been this reputational issue if they had been thrust out or if they had been put on a different path 30 years ago. But because so much of their behavior was not just allowed, but at times encouraged, bad behavior, that's why we ended up here. And of course, if the same situation is repeated with Harry and Meghan and Beatrice and Eugenie, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, look, yes, a lot of people say Beatrice and Eugenie are nice girls and that they've got nice husbands, but who knows? And really, are they enough of an asset to the British royal family to take that risk? And I think William is weighing that up and saying, nope, they're absolutely not. They're absolutely not worth that risk. And I'm not going to be cruel about them, but they also have an arrogant streak, put it that way. Now, look, I want to move on to this latest Meghan Markle bid, Brittany. And this was so flagrantly obvious to copy Catherine yet again, because we know that Catherine has this deep connection with Charlie Mackesy, who is the very special illustrator and inspirational author. She used, of course, that very special illustration by him in the comeback carol service last year. And that was really special, actually. It was a really special moment. But then Meghan Markle, that was the one that was done for Catherine, by the way. But now in her Instagram post, she's tried to claim that she's in with Charlie Mackesy by posting a snippet from his best-selling book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, while Brittany, of course, promoting her dodgy festive honey. It was open to the page, Brittany, which had the words, "Always remember you matter, you're important and you are loved, and you bring to this world things no one else can." Now, at the time when Charlie Mackesy very specifically backed Catherine, he said, "Love, empathy, and kindness are important messages for us all. As the theme of the Princess of Wales carol service this year, it was very special to have been asked to create the illustration for the order of service. I hope it reminds us of the beauty of being there for each other at Christmas." So it feels to me like, Brittany, this is just a cheap and tacky attempt for Meghan to cash in on this guy, knowing it will annoy Catherine, without any type of formal endorsement. I would be very, very surprised, Brittany, if we get a formal endorsement here from Charlie Mackesy in the same way that he did produce that bespoke illustration for Catherine. But what do you think's going on here? But first, have you ever actually looked at the nutrition label on a normal bag of crisps? You'll usually find a complete chemical cocktail, seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, vague natural flavors, and a list of ingredients that reads more like a science experiment than a snack. And then we wonder why we feel bloated, tired, and frankly a bit grim after we eat them. That's why I was so interested when I discovered Massa. They're part of this growing real food movement, bringing back the kind of food our grandparents ate before snacks started being made in labs. Now, Massa's tortilla chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic, nixtamalized corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's it. So no seed oils, no mystery chemicals, just real food. And here's the crucial bit. They don't just avoid all the rubbish, they actually taste incredible. Snacking on Massa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Massa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic. There's no crash, no bloat, no horrible sluggish feeling afterwards, because they're made with real food. They're more satisfying too. So you're not mindlessly inhaling half a family bag and still feeling hungry afterwards. And if you love Massa, you will also love their sister company, Vandy Crisps. You know how much I love crisps, but Vandy makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips. Proper flavor, proper crunch, without the garbage ingredient list. So ready to give Massa or Vandy a try? You can use the code Outspoken for 25% off your first order at massachips.com or vandycrisps.com. Or it might be easier, you can simply click the link in the video description box below or scan the QR code on screen to claim this delicious offer. And for our viewers, in the United States, Massa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. So stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone. But now, back to the show.
Well, I mean, as ever, Meghan Markle can't help but copy. She has no original idea in her head by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, everything about her brand is a knockoff, basically. And so you see this attempt again, and I don't think there's any question or doubt that this author is in any way associated with Meghan. And I imagine it's sort of frustrating to yet again have this sort of issue where Meghan and Harry claim that they're not trying to copy, they're not trying to compete. And then they obviously are trying to copy and compete. And this again goes to even their PR team. It's like, why aren't they helping them stop making sort of these, I would say, very dumb decisions to make it look like they're trying to kind of wiggle in onto where Catherine and William have. But as ever, Megan can't help but look at somebody else more successful and try to copy them rather than taking inspiration in this particular instance. But the whole attempt with this very, very lame, pathetic little bookmark she's trying to shill at Godmother's bookstore as if anybody has the time, money, or gas energy from LA to drive all the way up to Montecito just for like a $2 bookmark that they could get at Barnes and Noble and something better is just like it's really, really pathetic. It's very, very lame, but it's very Meghan Markle at this point. And I would suggest maybe she, I don't know, pull out a different book, a self help book or something. I don't know. But it was a very strange choice for sure.
Brittany, there is more Markle family drama. Thomas
Mm.
Markle struggling a lot over the weekend and speaking directly now in his latest YouTube video to his sister Meghan. Watch.
Definitely talking to you directly, Meghan Markle, and I hope you're fucking watching. You know, this is how you want to go out, right? This is how it's gonna go down, right? Seriously, the lowest of the low is what you are. The lowest of the low is what you are. For the man who gave you everything, your whiny little, stingy little ass, your whole entire life. And this is how it's gonna be. No phone calls, no text, no nothing to your dad whatsoever. My dad. You know, while I'm sitting here, you know, going fucking broke, seriously, because I can't get going. You know, I can't get going. Every day is a new day, and every day is like either good or the next day is really fucking bad.
And Brittany, look, there's a complicated family story behind this. Of course, I'm friends with Samantha Markle. I know she's doing a huge amount behind the scenes to help her father at the moment. Hopefully she'll be able to talk about that soon. But I do think the point that Thomas Markle Jr. makes overall, that it's pretty disgusting that Meghan has given nothing back to her father financially post his stroke when he spent $750,000 on her to put her through university, etc., etc. It still stands. Like, just because this has been the situation over a number of years, it doesn't mean that it makes her acts ever any less evil. And I do use that word actually when someone turns on a parent like that for no reason.
Mm. It is really, really sad, Dan, to see the situation that they're in. Although I would say Megan, you could say, is not necessarily obligated in some ways to, let's say, reimburse her father for what he paid for her, because obviously, as parents, they make decisions to support their children, and children aren't
Yes.
obligated
And in
in some
fairness,
ways to
Thomas
pay that
Markle
back.
Sr. has never asked for that. Ever.
Yes.
He's never asked for that. But this
Mhm.
is Thomas Markle Jr. basically being like, well, I don't have the money. And, I've put my life on hold, and you have
Mhm.
tens of millions of dollars, and you're letting your father languish in the Philippines. Although the good news is, Brittany, is it does look like he has finally now moved from this 19th story apartment, which I never felt was safe for him, given that he couldn't easily evacuate when there was that earthquake recently.
Mhm. Yes. And what I think, Dan, is really important here to remind, beyond sort of the financial obligations, is that Meghan Markle has treated her father terribly, her siblings terribly. And there were ways, let's say, if Megan is right in her instance, as she was worried her family would take advantage of her position. What Meghan Markle could have always done is have them sign NDAs and basically pay them off when she married into the royal family. What I think is really twisted is that Meghan did not even give them the time of day enough to think they were an issue to even address. Like she ignores them as if they don't exist. And when it comes to her father, especially, she was in contact with him for a long time. He was apparently going to come to the wedding, although I don't think she ever really wanted him there. And she used that first instance. I mean, it could always have been as well that Meghan Markle paid that paparazzi guy to have interactions with her father so she could sort of kind of say, oh, he can't come to the wedding now because of these embarrassing paparazzi pictures that he took. Megan, I think it's been very much twisted in how she's dealt with her family. And Harry, if he's not paying attention to this, how she treats her own father, he better watch out because if they do get divorced at some point, especially if Megan feels particularly slighted, and we know she will, she'll do the same thing to him. She'll do the same thing to their kids. Like she doesn't have any scruples in this way. And so I think Megan's treatment of her family is so indicative of who she actually is. She'll go to A-list Hollywood parties, she'll hang out with the Kardashians, but she won't even help her father move from one building to another, set him up comfortably for the rest
Totally.
of his life, you could say, because it wouldn't be that much for her, but she refuses to do it.
Says everything about her. It
Mhm.
truly does. And I remember, Brittany, when I was still executive editor of The Sun, and I remember the day when her team briefed me that in Meghan's eyes, her father was now dead to her.
Mm.
And I just thought, you nasty wench. You nasty, nasty wench. I've never forgotten it. Never forgotten that moment actually thinking, oh my God, like I could never do that to my mum or dad, ever. Now, Brittany, this is something we're going to talk about a lot over the coming weeks and months, but I just wanted to touch on it today because it's come from Robert Jobson. And Robert Jobson, look, great guy I've known for a long time. Jobbo, not everyone agrees with all of his journalism, all of his takes, but this is a guy who has been a very, very close chronicler of Charles, of King Charles. He's in the King Charles camp as a royal reporter. I mean, all of those years ago, Brittany, he revealed before anyone else, for example, that Charles and Camilla were getting engaged. So it's a properly close relationship. Now, he, on a new episode of the Daily Tea podcast, has put out this idea for discussion that not just Andrew needs to be removed formally from the line of succession, but Harry, Archie, and Lily too. It's obviously a popular view, but a highly controversial one, given what that means in terms of royal lineage. But I just wanted to show you what he said, Brittany, then I'll get your reaction off the back.
Have anomalies such as the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, being in line to the throne. When he's rejected the throne, he's trashed his family. He does what he lives abroad. You can't have him. I think they got
What, should he be taken out of the
I
line
think
of
so. I don't think he should be given. I don't think he should be the Duke of York, Duke of Sussex. I don't think he should be Prince Harry.
Well, Andrew should therefore also be taken out of the line.
Absolutely, without a question. I think the line of succession needs to be much clearer than it is. I think.
Wow,
I think
okay.
that because you've got these situations where, what if there was a terrible accident? You know, as it stands, Prince Harry could be king. Now, given what's happened, I don't think that's he's basically now affected. He's an American. He lives in America. He's rejected the idea of working for the monarchy. He does, although he says he didn't. He said he wanted it half in, half out. Well, you can't do that. I think really, in all honesty, it should be cut. So we have now at the moment down to Louis. There is no need really for any more.
Brittany, in your view.
Yes, I completely agree with that. There definitely needs to be some clarity in the line of succession here because it is one accident away potentially, especially if the Waleses family fly all together. We know they have in the past, and if Harry's king, I mean that's definitely an instance where there is no more British monarchy. But this definitely needs to be addressed and clarified. I think this again goes to addressing the rogue royal situation is that you do have these people who are in the line of succession who openly disparage the monarchy, drag it into disrepute, and yet they're still fairly high up in the line of succession, and there seemingly is no punishment to their behavior. And for the strength of the monarchy, I think this issue has to be addressed. And because things can go sideways, I think, really quickly in a monarchy. We saw this last year in Norway. It took about a month for the public reputation of the monarchy to take a massive hit due to various series of scandals. I think almost in this instance, because it's been brewing for a long time with the Brits, I think you almost have to take drastic action to kind of show the people, hey, we're addressing these issues, we're making changes. These people are no longer in the line of succession. They've made their choices. They have to deal with it now. This is a new British monarchy. I think some drastic things do have to be done to, I think, bolster the strength of the monarchy, because I think it's actually in a rather weak position at this point. And until they do that, I think there will be questions that linger. And so I think this is the route to go for Harry and Archie and Lily and Andrew, and perhaps Beatrice and Eugenie as well. It's time to change up things and make sure people know, if you are going to be in the line of succession, if you're going to stay there, especially that high up, there are certain standards you need to meet.
Fascinating, Brittany. This is going to run and run, this story, especially when we're leading to King William V and that reign. And he is proving, I think, by his actions and his words, that he's going to be a major modernizer. But look, do stand by. Meghan Markle's new BFF is a case of mean girls reuniting. I'm going to tell you all about this over on the Uncancelled After Show with Brittany. That's on Substack. And guess what? The Black Friday sale is still running. So if you've thought about joining us on Outspoken, and you know I've always said that the best way to support Outspoken is via Substack because it is a free speech platform that supports me directly, then we have this one-off sale. It's actually our biggest ever sale, as I'm very excited about it. 35% off for Black Friday. It's seen us storm up the list of Substack bestsellers. So thank you for everyone that's been supporting us. It's the best possible Christmas present. And the address that you can go to get 35% off is www.danwootonoutspoken.com/sale, SALE. So for 35% off, our special Black Friday sale, biggest ever sale. It would be amazing to have you as part of it. And by the way, as part of it, you can message me directly. You're part of all of our content on there. Plus, you get to see the Royal Uncancelled After Show first, live or on demand, with no advertising whatsoever every single weekday. So let me just repeat that address, www.danwootton outspoken.com/sale. Hope to see you over on Substack. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.